Imagine waking up to the sound of your farm, thriving crops flourishing, the sun rising over the horizon, and the peaceful rhythm of rural life. But what if that peace was shattered by someone determined to destroy everything you've worked for? This is the story of a man who inherited his family's legacy, only to have it threatened by a neighbor's malicious actions. What started as a petty dispute over water quickly escalated into a battle for survival, justice, and redemption. Get ready for a tale of sabotage, legal battles, and unexpected triumph. It was the kind of morning that felt like the world was still asleep. The farm, nestled in the rolling hills of Crestwood, was quiet. The only sounds were the chirping of birds and the gentle rustle of the wind through the apple orchard. I stood on the porch, watching the sun slowly climb over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the land. My family had worked this farm for generations, and it was now my turn to keep it alive. I inherited the property 5 years ago, after my father passed away, leaving my office job in the city. I came back to Crestwood, hoping to make a life here again. The work wasn't easy. Farming never is. But it was honest, and it was the way of life I knew. There were 40 acres to manage, with rows of vegetables and my father's prized apple orchard. The land had its challenges, but there was a quiet satisfaction in seeing things grow, and I was determined to make it work. At first, the neighbors were kind. Most of them had lived here their entire lives, just like my father had. But everything changed when Karen moved in next door. She wasn't like us. Karen was a city girl who made her fortune in real estate. She bought the 5-acre plot next to mine for weekend getaways, probably thinking she'd get a slice of rural charm without the mess of actual farm life. From the start, she complained about everything: the smell of fertilizer, the sound of tractors in the morning, the dust that blew onto her property. I tried to be accommodating. I adjusted my schedule, avoiding noisy equipment early in the morning when she was around. I even offered her fresh produce from the farm as a peace offering. But nothing seemed to satisfy her. That's when the problem started. Spring had arrived, and it was time to prepare for the growing season. In our area, we don't get a lot of rainfall during the summer months, so I had an irrigation system in place to ensure my crops had the water they needed. It was a basic setup that had served us well for decades. The water came from a well on the property, and I had pipes running to various sections of the farm. Nothing fancy, but it worked. One morning, as I checked on my newly planted fields, I noticed something strange. The soil in one section was bone dry. This didn't make sense. I had turned on the irrigation system the night before, but it looked like nothing had reached that area. I followed the water line to see if there was a break, and that's when I found it. The pipe had been cut clean through, and there was water pooling on the ground. At first, I thought it might have been an accident. Maybe something had fallen on the pipe, or an animal had chewed through it. I quickly repaired it, and didn't think much more of it. But then, it happened again, a week later. This time, I knew it wasn't an accident. The cut was too clean, too deliberate. Someone was intentionally damaging my irrigation system, but who and why I couldn't imagine anyone I knew doing something like this. So, I did what any sensible person would do. I set up a few trail cameras near the water lines to catch whoever was responsible. The next few days were uneventful. Nothing triggered the cameras. But then, one morning, as I was going through the footage with a cup of coffee in hand, I froze. There, clear as day, was Karen. She was on my property, cutting my water lines. I couldn't believe my eyes. The woman who had been complaining about everything had been sabotaging my farm. I took a deep breath and called her up. "Karen, can you explain why you're on my property cutting my water lines?" Her response was nothing short of shocking. "Those pipes are stealing water that should be coming to my property," she said, crossing her arms defensively. "I've noticed my well isn't producing as much water lately, and it's obviously because you're using too much. If you don't redirect your pipes, I'll keep cutting them." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't even acknowledging that she had done something wrong. She was demanding that I change my irrigation system, or she'd continue destroying it. I stood there, trying to process everything. But Karen wasn't interested in reason. "This is affecting my property value," she added, as if that somehow justified her actions. "What if I want to put in a pool? I need that water." I knew I couldn't let this go. Not only was she damaging my livelihood, but she was also threatening to continue her destructive behavior. I called the authorities and showed them the footage. With the evidence in hand, they agreed that charges could be filed: trespassing, vandalism, theft of water. This was no longer just a neighbor dispute. It was a crime. Karen wasn't pleased when the police showed up at her door. She tried to play the victim, but the evidence was clear. She had been caught on camera repeatedly damaging my property. Still, she tried to intimidate me. "I have connections in this county you can't even imagine," she said, her voice full of arrogance. "You're making a huge mistake." But I wasn't intimidated. I had my farm to protect, and I wasn't going to let her destroy it for her own selfish gain. The legal process began, and soon Karen found herself facing both criminal charges and a civil lawsuit for the damage she had caused. The trial was intense. Karen's defense was laughable. She claimed that she didn't understand rural property laws and that she had no idea what she was doing. But the judge wasn't buying it. The evidence was clear. Karen had been deliberately vandalizing my irrigation system and stealing water for her own use. She was found guilty on all counts. The court ordered her to pay over $60,000 in damages, plus additional punitive fines. It was a victory, but it didn't feel like one. I wasn't doing this for the money. I was doing it to protect my farm, my family's legacy. I used the money from the lawsuit to upgrade my irrigation system, making it more efficient and secure. I also installed a comprehensive security system around the property, just in case Karen or anyone else had similar ideas. The next year, my farm was thriving. The crops were lush. The irrigation system was running smoothly. And I even partnered with a new family who moved into Karen's old property. They were growing specialty herbs and heirloom vegetables, and we shared equipment and labor during the busy seasons. What had started as a dispute over water had transformed into a valuable partnership. Karen, however, couldn't let go. A year after the trial, I started hearing rumors that she had been calling around to local businesses, spreading lies about my farm. She was trying to ruin my reputation, claiming that I was using illegal pesticides and that my farm was under investigation. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I gathered evidence of the calls, and with the help of my lawyer, we filed a cease and desist order. When I confronted Karen, she denied everything, but the evidence spoke for itself. The harassment ended, but it was clear that Karen had learned nothing from her mistakes. As for me, I focused on rebuilding. The money from the lawsuit had allowed me to install a rainwater collection system, and my farm was more sustainable than ever. I even started speaking at community meetings, sharing my story about the importance of protecting your property and standing up for what's right. My farm had become a model for others, and I was proud of what I had built. The story of Karen and me ended in a courtroom. But for me, it was just the beginning. I had protected my family's legacy, turned a bad situation into an opportunity for growth, and proved that sometimes justice does prevail. As for Karen, I heard she moved away after serving her time. I can't say I feel sorry for her, but I do hope she learned something from all of this. For me, it's a new chapter. My farm is thriving, and my community is stronger than ever. In the end, I made sure Karen paid for every drop of water she stole, and more. And now, as I watch my crops grow, I know that this fight was worth every moment.